Michael Yardney, and we're here for another weekly chat with Tom Corley about the rich habits and poor habits of people, the success habits that wealthy people achieve and the poor people don't. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Great, good to have you here again. Now, for those people who aren't familiar, Tom's done a 5-year study of people working out the habits of the rich and successful people. Tom, when did you conduct that study and how long did it go on for?
I started it, Michael, in 2004, and I finished it in late 2007, early 2008. And then I spent, I think, 16 months analyzing the data.
And you looked at 233 rich people, 128 poor people. And what you were looking at, from what I understand, is why some people managed to become rich, because they didn't all start that way, did they, Tom?
No, look, I was just trying to answer two questions. I wanted to know why some people are rich and some people are poor, because I went through poverty and wealth as a child. And I also wanted to know, what do rich people and poor people do from the minute that they put their feet on the floor in the morning to the minute that they put their head on the pillow at night? I wanted to try and capture what they were doing during the day. I didn't know, Michael, any of this had anything to do with habits. I just was looking, I was in search of the truth. And the truth led me to habits.
Well, in fact, it goes back a bit further than that, doesn't it, Tom? Because it goes to beliefs, because your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions lead to your habits, the things you do every day. So from my understanding of your study, my readings of your work, it actually goes back even deeper to beliefs, doesn't it, Tom?
Well, keep in mind, Michael, that beliefs are thinking habits. They're repetitive thoughts that we think. They're really the acceptance of something without any proof or any facts to back it up. You just accept it. And most of the time, Michael, those beliefs, almost 90% of the time, those beliefs are coming from your parents.
Sure. And because it's happening at the subconscious level and unconscious level, we don't know that we've got this programming. And as I often say, you're driving around with one foot on the accelerator and one on the brake, because you've got positive beliefs, you've got empowering beliefs, but we're all walking around with some disempowering beliefs, aren't we, Tom?
We are. And the only time we start to question anything in life is when our life isn't going right. Right, Michael? So things aren't going well in our lives. And then we start questioning everything. We start asking ourselves questions. And it's at that point, when we're at our lowest, that we start focusing on our beliefs and our habits. You know, what am I doing? What is it that other successful people are doing that I'm not doing? You know, what's holding me back in life? You start going through this self-assessment process. And part of that self-assessment process, you discover that there are beliefs in your subconscious that you picked up from your parents that are acting like a brake on your life.
Well, it's interesting, because those people who've managed to move themselves out of poverty have actually changed their beliefs, and therefore they've changed their habits. So I agree with you. The first thing you've got to do is recognize your beliefs. And the second thing is remove the disempowering beliefs. And the third thing, of course, is to replace them with empowering beliefs. So if it's okay, Tom, in this session, I've got a list of some of your beliefs here from your work. Can I just work through them, and can we just have a quick talk about them?
Yeah, I'd love to.
So one of the beliefs that you've recognized is that wealthy people believe they've got to read to learn.
Yeah, they have this, or they've developed this belief that they need to improve every single day. And part of that requires that they read. Well, it could be more than reading. It could be listening to audiobooks, it could be listening to podcasts, it could be watching TEDx, could be watching videos like this. So they're focused almost single-mindedly on learning, and reading is a primary tool that they use to learn. That's right.
Tom, one of your other beliefs that you've written here that I'm very familiar with also, I speak about a lot, is that they believe they're responsible for their lives. I say that they're the pilots of their lives, not the passenger, while in general, poor people believe that they're just the passenger being dragged along by the circumstances, by the economy, by the world, by their education.
Yeah, what I found in my research was really shocking to me about the poor people is they have this can't do victim ideology, this school of thought that says, look, I was born poor, I'm going to stay poor. It's pure luck. It's random luck. I was just handed, a deck of cards. Nothing I can do about it. Well, what I found out in my research was 177 of the 233 millionaires were self-made. They came, 45% of them came from poverty. So guess what? They were poor and they were able to break out of poverty. How come they were able to do it? Well, they did certain things that were important. They changed their thinking. They changed their beliefs. They adopted the belief that I am responsible for my circumstances. Just because I'm born into circumstances that where I was poor growing up, that doesn't mean I'm going to be stuck or permanently in that poverty. So the self-made millionaires, they had somehow, somewhere along the way, they were able to shake off that limiting belief that they were victims.
Well, that's another good point, Tom, because I don't know any rich victims. That's the victim mentality. I also think it's an excuse parents sometimes use for their kids. Well, it's actually not really my fault because they're a bit ashamed of where they are, how they are, what they've achieved, or more importantly, what they haven't achieved. So, well, it's not my fault. It's actually the government's fault. It's Social Security's fault. It's my boss's fault. It's my parents' fault. So therefore, they don't feel as bad about themselves, do they, Tom?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way, Michael. You could say, look, you know what? There's nothing I can do. It's really what it is they've accepted hopelessness.
Another important belief that you've written about is wealthy people, successful people, believe money and wealth is good. They believe they deserve it. While the average person, unfortunately, has these mixed messages. Tom, when I grew up, I heard some interesting things about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. My parents were poor. And they actually, I don't think they were jealous of wealthy people, but they looked at them a little bit suspiciously. I know poor people often are jealous or think that dirty money, filthy rich, while wealthy people are comfortable about money.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with the same kind of, sayings at home. My mother had that. There was a Bible saying that it was easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it was for a rich person to go to heaven. And so I basically grew up thinking that, well, all rich people are going to hell. That's pretty much what my mother embedded in us. So honestly, when I did this research, my expectations were very different than what they ended up being, because I thought rich people were evil, greedy, fat men smoking cigars, inherited, most of their wealth. Most of the wealthy inherited their wealth. These were the beliefs that I had. And as it turned out, and WealthX just released a report recently that proved out my research. In my research, 76% of the wealthy came from poverty or the middle class. Well, in the WealthX study on billionaires, they said that 87% of the wealthy, of the billionaires, were self-made. So, I grew up thinking, well, all wealthy people were handed their wealth, and as it turns out, that the wealthy people were not handed their wealth. The vast majority of them created it on their own.
So the belief is that money and wealth are good and successful people are comfortable with that. Of course, Tom, that's one of the limiting beliefs we have if we don't believe money is good. Because if you believe you're a good person and the wealthy people are evil, then you're going to limit your abilities to get money. You're not going to attract it. In fact, you're going to detract it because If you're a nice person, a good person, and wealthy people are not good, well, you don't want to be like that, do you? So you can see how the things that we heard, the things that we saw, the things we experienced as a child can affect us, can't they?
Yeah, I think when you hear people say things like wealthy people are greedy, wealthy people are bad, you hear it all the time in the media, Michael. What they're really saying is, I'm going to be poor for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one of the other things that you've written about is the concept that there's an abundance of money. Wealthy people believe that there's no shortage. In other words, Tom, if I go off and do a real estate deal, is that going to stop you doing one? No, there's enough for
Oh,
everybody. If I
you
buy
know,
some stocks in
right.
a company, is that going to stop you buying them? Not at all. So there's enough to go around, but that's a different philosophy. Wealthy people, you wrote, have an abundance mentality, while poor people have a scarcity mentality.
Yeah, like the wealthy always look at wealth and they say, it's just going to keep increasing worldwide. And I'm going to get my share of it. The poor people, they look at wealth and say, it's shrinking and shrinking. It's getting less and less. And I'm never going to get my share. So why bother?
That's interesting. I remember a while ago in the United States, and we had it a bit here in Australia too, there was that group of people protesting against the 1%. They felt they were the 99% and the 1% were wealthy. What always interested me was that those 99% were the 1% in many other countries in the world who'd love to be the 99% in the United States or Australia, wouldn't they, Tom?
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective. Remember that the 99%, they were talking to their family and friends on cell phones. They had iPods, they had Macs, they had all sorts of gadgets. They were going to Starbucks to get some coffee. So they weren't exactly poor. What I think their big gripe was is that they wanted more and they didn't want to work for it. They wanted it given to them.
Well, that brings me to the next belief that you've written about, Tom, and that is that wealthy people believe that anyone can become rich, while the poor don't believe that, Tom.
Yeah, and the reason the wealthy believe that is because most of them came from poverty or the middle class. So they grew up with all the same limiting beliefs that the poor people had, but they were able to shake it off. So they changed their beliefs and they realized, oh my gosh, anybody can become wealthy. It's really just a matter of pursuing something you're passionate about, daily growth, and a whole host of other things. But it's a process. They realize that it's nothing more than a process, and I'm going to get on that train. Poor people look at the train as it's passing them by, and they say to themselves, I can't get on that train. There's no way.
Tom, there's so many of these beliefs. I've gotten this list from your book. I only want to discuss one more in this video session, and can we come back next week and do another one, please?
Be delighted.
The concept that I'd like to now discuss is that wealthy people believe that they can solve problems. This is one of the beliefs of wealthy people that leads to good habits.
Yeah, and here's the reason why. Because they solved problems. They were poor, or they were stuck in the middle class. They pursued something that they were passionate about. They pursued a dream. They ran into all sorts of hurdles. They dove in, and they figured out how to build the plane as they were falling down the cliff. And they said, wow, I can do this. This isn't impossible. I can solve almost any problem. I just have to throw myself into it. And that's one of the advantages that the self-made millionaires have at the end, Michael, not at the beginning, because at the beginning, they are filled with doubts. They know they're running into problems, obstacles, hurdles, potholes. They're trying to overcome all these things. There's nothing they can do about some of these obstacles that stand in their way, but they figure out a way eventually to overcome these obstacles. And the aftermath of that is, my gosh, this is hard, no doubt about it, but I can solve just about any problem.
I think a corollary to that is they also believe they can overcome any obstacle. They understand that there are going to be failures, and they don't see failure as poor people see failure. They see it as just another way of not getting there, Tom, and then they move forward and get up again, don't they?
Yeah, the people that are the most fearful of failure are those who have never failed. self-made millionaires fail all the time, so they're immune to it. They actually expect to fail, and they're trying to figure out what they can learn from it. So they're not afraid of failure because they're so used to it.
I love that expression. They expect to fail, and if you do, then you don't get disappointed when it happens, do you?
Yeah, well, that's what happiness is all about, meeting your expectations in life.
I've met that very well over my life, Tom. Tom, this is a lot of fun talking about the beliefs that you have recognized that have led to rich habits and the, I guess, unsupportive beliefs that have led to poor habits. So thanks for spending your time on this session, and we'll get together again next week and we'll run through some more of them.
Yeah, we got a lot more to go over, Michael, so I'm looking forward to it.
My pleasure, Tom. Thank you.